All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to look at the second graph today. This is going to be an ogive graph, which is going to be a little bit more complicated than the basic histogram, but we're going to walk through it and get it figured out. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go back to our hockey data, which again is a little different from yours, but the process is the same. And this time, let's take a look at the LA Kings. The first thing I'm going to do when I want to investigate the LA Kings is I'm going to sort their data just to sort of get a sense of the smallest and largest number, understand the range that we're looking at. So let's sort the range, and we're going to do an advanced sort. Our data has a header. We're going to pick Los Angeles Kings. And we use the data has a header row so that this first row doesn't get moved around during the sort. It stays up there at the top. We're going to pick A to Z. That means it's going to go from small to large. And let's give that a go. So now if we look at our LA Kings column, it goes from 20 at its low point all the way to 40 at the highest. By the way, if you're wondering what this bar is here, that's another little shortcut that's handy to use. If you go into View, Freeze, top two rows, it keeps your header in the first row of data there visible so that you can scroll and still understand what you're looking at. Okay, so we have a range of 20 to 40. So let's go ahead and set up our table. We're going to go with a bin, lower limit, a bin upper limit, a frequency, which is a count of how many games fall into each of those. We're going to go ahead and title this just so we have it here. Los Angeles Kings. If you have a bunch of these all in one spreadsheet, you don't want to get confused about which data you're looking at in these tables. All right, relative frequency, which is basically percent. And finally, we're going to look at a cumulative relative frequency, which is our ogive. So if I highlight these columns and I double click the edge, that'll adjust the width so that fits all the words there that I typed. Our first bin is going to go from 20 to 29. Seems like, you know what, let's do 5. We want to have a few more bins than just that. So let's go 20 to, let's make this 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And then make this 24, 29, 34, 39, 44. We'll see what that looks like here. All right, so for our frequency, what we want to do now is we want to figure out how many games out of the 200 total that we have had between 20 and 24 shots on goal. So I could, now that I have this data sorted, just kind of scroll down here and look at this, and if I come down over here to my little quick reference on the bottom right and I select count, I can see that there are 45 games that have between 20 and 24 shots on goal. But then I would have to update that for each of them. So instead of that, I'm going to go ahead and just write a little formula. And our formula is going to look like this. I'm going to make this a little bigger so that you guys can see it more easily. All right, equals count ifs. So that's plural for count ifs. And we're looking at LA Kings, which were in column B. So we're going to go B1 to B201. And we want to have it if it is greater than or equal to the lower limit of the bin, which is H6 for me. And then we're going to also look at B1 colon B201. If it is less than or equal to the upper limit of the bin, which is I6. And let's see if that worked. Okay, we got an error in here somewhere. Let's see if we can figure it out. We've got our greater than the lower limit, less than the upper limit. Okay. Oh, I found it. We are missing a comma here. All right, there's the comma. And boom, we got a little autofill going in. Before we do that, we're going to go ahead. We want to arrange, so just to kind of go through this formula so you understand it here. This says these are two conditions. There's multiple conditions, so we're using the count ifs instead of count if. It's going to look in the range of data from B1 to B201. That's the column of data where we had the LA Kings information. It's going to look for things in that column that are greater than or equal to H6, which is this 20, and that are less than and equal to I6, which is this 24, and it's going to count those up. If it meets these two conditions, then it'll count it. If it doesn't meet those conditions, it won't count it. Now, before we drag this down, we know that in Excel, if we drag down the formula, that everything that it's referenced is going to get dragged down too. That includes these two numbers, which is great. We want those to get dragged down when we drag down our formula. But it also includes this chunk of data here, right? We don't want that to get dragged. We want that to stay constant as we drag down our formula. So we're going to come in here and we're going to put dollar signs in front of the B and the B1, which are going to lock those in place. And so everywhere that we're referencing our range of data, we're going to add a dollar sign in front of the row and column to lock that in place like so. So now our modified equation looks like this. It has a dollar sign in front of the B and the 1, the B and the 201, and here as well. Now when I drag it down, these two cells, which the H6 and the I6, do not have the dollar signs. They are unlocked. They will drag down with the formula, but the column information, the referencing of the data, will stay the same and will not drag down. All right, let me undo that little mistake. Here we go. All right, now we can just drag these down, boom, boom, boom. We're good to go. Let's do one last quick check. We know that there are 200 data points in all of these columns. So I'm going to do a quick sum here. I'm going to say equals sum, parentheses, highlight all those, and sure enough, I get 200. I'll go ahead and add a sum line here so we know that's 200. Now, to convert the count into a percentage or relative frequency, we're going to say equals the count, so 45, and I want to divide that by this 200 that I have right here. And again, I want to be able to drag this down. I want this orange dotted box to drag down with my formula, but I want the purple box to stay in place. So I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the J and a dollar sign in front of the 11 to lock the purple box in place and leave the orange box able to be dragged down. Now, technically, I could get away with just a dollar sign in front of the 11, which just locks the row, since I'm only dragging it down. But for simplicity now, we're going to go dollar sign in front of both of them to lock the cell in place. Okay, that is auto-filling properly. I can tell this if I drag this over, the sum of this column is 1. I also could look down here at the bottom right and change this to sum and see here that the sum is still 1. All right, finally, we're almost to our ogive. The ogive is what you get if you add up the frequencies as we go, or the relative frequencies as we go. So we're going to make our first one equal to this cell, 22.5%. And we're not going to autofill this time. The cell under that is going to equal 22.5 plus 28.5. that data right there. Now what's great here is when I drag this down, it's always going to reference a cell above it plus a cell next to it. So I can just go boop, and that's going to sum to 1 now, okay? We are good to go on that. We're not going to sum this column. We are going to check the last row in this column equals 1. All right, so now we are geared up to create a good ogive graph. Let's change this back to 100% for our LA Kings. Now, if we wanted to do, say, a frequency or relative frequency, we could do that. We could highlight the lower limit here, hold down the control button, and I could do the frequency here, insert a chart, and I would get a bar chart that's basically a histogram at that point, showing the frequency of each of those bends. But in this case, we're going to want to do the ogive. That's what we came here for. So we're going to select the upper limit and the cumulative relative frequency. So those two, remember that I hold down the control button to be able to select multiple data like that. Hit the insert chart. Now, for whatever reason, Sheets doesn't love it when you do this, and you always have to come in and fix it, but it's an easy fix. Here's what we're going to do. We want our x-axis to be our upper limit on our bends. So we click on the x-axis here in the chart editor, and we pick upper limit. We don't want it to be a series. That's basically the y. So we're going to eliminate that. Now we have this. It's starting to look a little more like an ogive. And we're going to change the chart type. Instead of it being a column chart, we're going to change it to a smooth line chart. And we get something like this. All right, so here is our ogive graph. We're going to want to customize this a little bit. We're going to want to add some chart titles. So our title here might be LA Kings. That is the vertical axis title. I'm going to change that to chart title. LA Kings, ogive. Let's go with our horizontal axis title is going to still be shots on goal. Our vertical axis title is going to be percentile. The nice part about the ogive is once you have this, it's really easy to find the percentiles for your data. And in fact, I've asked you to do that in the project. But before we do that, we're going to need a few more lines in between here so that we can get a better reading. So we're going to stay in Customize, and we're going to look at grid lines and ticks. And on our vertical axis, we're going to add some minor grid lines. Let's see what that looks like if we add 4 of them. Let's change our major count here. There we go. I like that better. And then we can actually probably just get rid of this. This lets us see our percentiles very easily. So for 90th percentile, I can go over here to 0.9 until I hit my graph and then go straight down from there. So it looks like probably something like 36, 37 shots on goal. My 50th percentile, I go over here, go straight down. It looks like it's more like 27 shots on goal. Let's see if we can add some tick lines on our horizontal axis to make this a little more visible. Major axis spacing. Okay, we'll add some minor there. And because we have a bend width of 5, I'm going to add 4 ticks between it, which should make it, like here's 29, so this should be 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So now if I want to look at that 50th percentile again, I can start at 0.5, go over till I hit my line, go straight down. It looks like I'm around 28.5 shots on goal for my 90th percentile. I go over, I go down, and I'm around 37.5 shots on goal. Probably want to change my y-axis so that it goes up a little bit higher. I can go in here to vertical axis and make my max maybe like 1.1. Maybe we'll just make it 1 so that it shows it. All right, that looks nicer. All right, well, there's your basic ogive. You can do that for any of the data sets. We have our percentiles on the y-axis. We have our data that we're looking at, whether it's beats per minute, shots or goal, AQI, whatever your data is all about, on the x-axis. And now we're able to just read off the percentiles for that data from this graph, which is pretty neat.